Have you got a song idea in your head that you just need to get down and then you want to record it, you want to make it into a full song and then you want to release it? Well, that's what we're going to do. In this 5-part series, I'm going to take you right from idea to release. Hey guys, JP here from John Paul Music UK. If this is your first time here and you want to learn everything about music tech and looping, start now by hitting the subscribe button, hit that bell, and you won't miss anything. Happy New Year, first of all. I've got 2 New Year's resolutions. Number 1, I want to get a song out by the end of January. And number 2, I want to use my iPad as the main source for recording that song. So what we're going to do is, in a 5-part series, this is part 1, where we're going to look at the idea of the song. We're going to get that down and recorded. We're going to embellish that in part 2. In part 3, we're going to show you how to mix it and add effects. And then in part 4, we're going to show you how we can master that song. And finally, in part 5, we're going to distribute that song out. So by the end of January, my goal is to have a new song, a brand new song out there in the real world on all the streaming sites, so you'll be able to hear it. So equipment list, I'm going to be using a couple of different things. First of all, I'm going to be using the iPad. Then I'm going to be using an audio interface, which is the Scarlett 2i2. I'm going to be using a dongle to plug the audio interface in, and that dongle for me is the hyperdrive. I'm going to be using my headphones, which are my Sennheisers. I'm going to need a microphone, so my Shure SM58 for now, and then an XLR cable. Then I'm going to be using my guitar, which is a Yamaha APX600 with a jack-to-jack lead. Now I'll also need a couple of extra things, so I'll need a mic stand. For recording vocals as well, I will also need a pop shield. Now I might use a condenser microphone and go up to that condenser microphone, but we'll see how we go with the SM58 and see if we can get away with recording this just with that microphone. If not, we will be using a condenser microphone as well. And of course, I'll be plugging everything into power to make sure we've got enough power running through the system. The only other 2 possibilities which are additional, we don't have to use them, is 1, I've got my keyboard here. This is the Roland Juno DI, but I'll just use it as a MIDI controller. And also my speakers. So my speakers are my KRK Rocket 5s. However, I am going to restrain from using them if I don't have to. And that's the equipment list. So the other part of the equipment list is actually using a couple of apps. So the first one we're going to be using is Music Memos. Then we're going to go into GarageBand. And then we're going to be using a couple of extra things, including DistroKid to distribute the music.
This series is sponsored by DistroKid. Upload unlimited songs, EPs and albums to all the major online stores and streaming sites like Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon, Google Play, Tidal, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Deezer, and over 150 more around the world, all for just $19.99 a year. And keep 100% of your royalties. Get 7% off your first year's membership with our special VIP link that's on the screen now, and it's also in the description box below.
So this is episode 1, this is the idea. Okay, so I've got this idea for this song about sitting in a tree, and I'm going to sing it to you right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You and me, still sitting in this tree. It's looking kind of high from here. What do you see? You and me, still sitting in this tree. And take my hand and hold me tight. Let's dance tonight. Bum, bum. So that's the idea. So first thing I've got to do is I've got to figure out what chords it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab the guitar and then figure out roughly what the key is, because I quite like singing in that key. You and me, still sitting in this tree. A little bit low. You and me, yeah, that's cool. You and me, still sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? You and me, still sitting in this tree. Take my hand and hold me tight. Use tonight. Cool. So it's a pretty basic structure. I think that's B. So G, C, D, G, capoed on the 4th. So now I know that, that's good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record that into music memos with the guitar and just see if I'm right, and see if what it comes up with. Okay, so I've got my iPad here. Now, it doesn't matter which iPad it is, it's the app that's important. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Music Memos. That should just launch. We're going to make sure that that can hear me, that's good. And then we're going to start recording it. You and me still sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? You and me still sitting in this tree. Take my hand and hold me tight. Dance tonight. Cool. Okay, so we've recorded that, just basic idea, and we've recorded it into Music Memos. Music Memos has picked up some chords, so it has said B there. That's quite good. I know that now. That's good. And then I'm just going to tap on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just play that back now and just have a listen. You and me still sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? Okay, cool. So let's figure that out. So it says 77 beats per minute. Let's have a listen if we add the drums in. Let's go from there. You and me still sitting in. Okay, so we just need to adjust this a little bit. Let's have a quick look. Let's go back to 4/4. I think I want it double the speed, if I'm honest. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's better. You and me still sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? You and me still sitting in this tree. Take my hand and hold me tight. Dance tonight. Alright, cool. So Music Memos has done a pretty good job there, and we've got the bass line there, and we've got the drums, and I'm going to alter that a little bit later. But this is just to get it down, just to get the idea down. I'm going to start embellishing on this, and then I'm going to record a full version. But the great thing about this is I can send it to GarageBand straight away if I wanted to, if it was a full song. But because of this, it's figured out 154 BPM, which I thought was really fast, but turns out that's what it is. That's fine. So it's double the speed in 4/4. That's great. And also I've got the chords there, which is useful for later. So one other thing I want to do really quickly in Music Memos, just to save this, is I just want to go to Notes. I want to say that it's capoed on the 4th in standard tuning, and then I'm going to write the lyrics. Do you see? You and me still sitting in this tree. Take my hand and hold me tight. Dance tonight. So that's the idea. I think we're going to need a couple of verses to go with that chorus, and maybe a middle 8 as well. So over the next week, I'm going to start making that into a song, and then in part 2, I'm going to show you how we record that into GarageBand and make it a full track. Remember, this is a 5-part series. If you found the content of this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help the channel grow. Please have a look at the special link at the bottom of the page now. That is from DistroKid, who is sponsoring this series to give you 7% off your first annual membership. Thank you, DistroKid, and to all of you who have subscribed to this channel already, and we'll see you in the next video, which is part 2. Have you got an idea for a song that you just want to record and get out there into the world? Well, in this series of videos, we're taking you from idea to release. Hey guys, what's happening? This is JP from John Paul Music UK. If this is your first time here and you want to learn more about looping and music tech, start now by clicking the subscribe button, hit that bell, and you won't miss anything. This series is called From Idea to Release, and the idea behind it is that from week 1, if you've got an idea, by the end of week 5, we can release it as a full song out into the world for all the streaming sites and all the online stores. This is the second video of the 5-video series From Idea to Release, and in this video we're going to show you how we take the idea that we recorded in part 1 and we're going to show you how we embellish that from a recording into a full song. Over the past week, I've been dotting in and out of this room, looking at this song and seeing if we can embellish it. I've now got a couple of verses as well as the chorus pretty much down, and we've got a little lead idea as well, or maybe an intro. Now, the original idea is recorded in Music Memos. There's two things I can do. I can either send that idea from Music Memos to GarageBand, or I can build a track from scratch. Now, I would normally say send it to Music Memos, but it's only the chorus that I've got. And the other thing as well is, if you do send a track from Music Memos to GarageBand, you can't change the BPM afterwards. So say you played it a little bit too fast from what you actually want, and then further down the line you find actually you want it a couple of BPM slower, you can't change that later on. So on that basis, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a track from scratch, and we're going to build a structure based on what we've written down for the lyrics. Now, with using GarageBand on my iPad, there's lots of different sounds in there, but I also want to record live sounds. I want to record my guitar, I want to record my voice. So as well as using the onboard sounds in GarageBand, I'll be plugging an audio interface and recording live. If you haven't yet seen part 1, I'll put a card up now so you can go back and watch it. If your song is already ready and you want to get it out there in the world, then you might want to have a look at our sponsor.
This series is sponsored by DistroKid. Upload unlimited songs, EPs and albums to all the major online stores and streaming sites like Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon, Google Play, Tidal, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Deezer, and over 150 more around the world, all for just $19.99 a year. And keep 100% of your royalties. Get 7% off your first year's membership with our special VIP link that's on the screen now, and it's also in the description box below.
Okay, so to start building our song, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the drummer in GarageBand. I'm going to use different parts of the drummer and space it out so I know what the verse is, the chorus is, etc, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move across over to drummer. We're going to pick acoustic drummer, and I'm going to have a look and see what we've got. We start off with Kyle. Let's have a listen, see what he sounds like. That's great. So first of all, we need to get the BPM correct. So we're going to move this all the way up to 154, which is what was on Music Memos. Let's have a listen now. That sounds pretty cool. So for now, what we've got is 8 bars. When you launch Drummer, it just gives you the straight 8 bars from the beginning. We need a lot more than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to just use one section, and we're going to ramp this all the way up to about 158, 159, 160. Let's go 160 just for why not. So we're going to have this so it's got lots of bars, and then we can start playing with it. Now, when I tap off this, it's going to loop that 1 8 bar quite a lot of times. We don't want it to loop, so what we're going to do is we're going to drag it back, deselect it, and then when you reselect it again, we can actually change the actual length of this loop. So the first thing I want to do is I want to have like a 4-bar intro, maybe just a hi-hat and a little bit of a fill. So let's zoom in on this and let's start making that out. So let's go 4 bars. We're going to take out the drum kit. We're going to have a big fill at the end. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Okay, that's too long. I only needed 2 bars. So let's go 2 bars and let's have a listen. All right, cool. So all we need to do now is create another section. What this will do is it'll create multiple 8-bar sections for us, and we can start manipulating them. All we do is tap next to Kyle, and you can see it says select all, create or edit. We're going to hit create. Now if I zoom back out, we've got lots of 8-bar sections there, but what we're going to do is I'm going to basically just get rid of a couple of them and start making this into the song that I want. Now the great thing about Drummer is that it's like a live drummer in that respect. So what we can do is we can have a bit of an intro, and we can have, like, say, verse 1 and then the chorus. The great thing about this as well, they all say Kyle, 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 Kyle. What I'm going to do is if you tap on one of them, say this very, very beginning bit, if I tap it again, we've got a couple of options here. The other one is rename. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this intro. This is really useful as you start making your pattern, because what this means is you can visually see where you are on GarageBand. So let's just change that there. Cool. We're going to use the next one. I'm going to rename it straight away, and we'll just call it verse 1. I'm going to move this along. Now in the verse, I'm going to start singing. I actually want it to be a little bit quieter, so let's use this loud, soft, simple, complex pad, and we can actually drag this section down a little bit, and we can bring the fills down a little bit, so we don't have a fill in bar 4, we only have it in bar 7 or 8. So let's have a quick listen and see what that sounds like. That's great. In fact, what I'm going to do is on the intro, I'm actually going to bring in a tambourine just a little bit, just to give it a little bit more oomph, and then obviously it's going to die down. Yeah, it's great. Now I've got the structure of the song in my head, but if you're not sure, or you've written lyrics down, you need to reference them, you've got your device, what you can do is you can do split screen on an iPad. If you're not sure how to do this, it's really simple. All you do is, we've got GarageBand up right now, and then we just swipe up to activate that bar at the bottom, and then swipe up again. And you can see that I've got notes there, and I can just drag notes up on top. So this is the lyrics, and then what I can also do is I wrote out the chord structure, so I can have a look at this and see where we are, and then I can actually reference this and move along. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reference the song, I'm going to carry on with this, so then what we'll end up with is a full version of the song with Drummer. So what we've now done is we've got a full version of the song now with Drummer. We've ended up with 2 choruses at the end. I'm not quite sure yet from the recording how we're going to end that, so that might change as we get further down the line, but this just gives us a really great reference, and we can see here how many bars we're going to be for each section. So the next thing we need to do is get the guitar into this song, and what we've done is we've plugged in the audio interface into the hyperdrive into the iPad, and then I plugged the guitar in on channel 1, and I've got my headphones so I can hear myself. So to set up GarageBand, what we're going to need to do is click the plus button, and then what we're going to use is audio recorder. So we're going to use instruments, and straight away it sets up a guitar. There's loads of different settings here. I just leave it on nice room for now. I can always change it a little bit later. If you plug an audio interface straight in, the great thing is that GarageBand automatically recognizes it. So we can see here it's already figured out there's channel 1 and channel 2 of the audio input source. So we're using input number 1, and what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure it works. We're just going to turn monitoring on so I can hear it. There we go. And then all we need to do is we need a reference to make sure that we're playing the right chords in the right place. This is where the notes come back in, and all we're going to do is we're going to swipe over and we can see the notes here. And the great thing about this, I can see my chords whilst I can also see which part I'm recording because I've named them. So this becomes really, really useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, I think we're ready for a take. When I hit record, it's going to give me a 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing I do need to do is I need to make sure the mix is okay. So I need to hear the guitar as well as hear the drums. I've turned the drums down just a little bit just so we can hear the guitar a bit more. And I also need to turn the metronome on. Now, I do prefer recording to a drummer as opposed to the metronome, but there is a gap at the end of verse 3. So I need to make sure that I'm in time for coming in for the last chorus. Okay, so we've recorded our guitar. You heard there at the end I was playing slower than the metronome. It was a bit difficult to do, so you always have to almost ignore the metronome when you're doing that. You could turn the metronome off at that point if you just need the drummer and you're okay with it. And yeah, there we go. We got our guitar recorded down. Okay, so the next section is vocals. You join us here in the booth. This is not really a booth, it's the corner of my room, next door to where we've just been playing the guitar. Now I've got a couple of acoustic tiles here and that's fine, but if you don't have that, what you can do is you can actually sing into a wardrobe. So put the microphone stand and open the wardrobe doors, put the microphone stand in the wardrobe, and all the clothes that are inside, if it's got loads of clothes in, it will deaden the sound. It looks silly, but actually it works really, really well to deaden the audio so you don't pick anything up from the rest of the room. We've just set the iPad up. Right next door is the Focusrite, and we've turned 48-volt power on. That's really important because we are using a condenser microphone. So we plugged the condenser microphone in, and I've got headphones in again, and we're going to set it up this time, but this time we're going to set it up for vocals. So all we need to do is click the plus button on there. We're going to use audio recorder again, but this time click voice. We've got a signal coming in from the microphone, and I can see that on the 2i2 there, and you can see it coming in on the green. Now, this is two things you can do here. One, we need to hear monitoring, so if we turn monitoring on, we can now hear the monitoring of that. We've also got, of course, again, a lot of presets we can play around with. You've got radio ready, extra singer, narrator. I'll just leave it on lead vocals for now. And there's a little bit of hall. I'm going to pull that back just a little bit because I want to hear the vocal as I talk to it. 1, 2, 1, 2. The other thing you can do as well on GarageBand is if you have a look here, it says channel 1, and that's fine, it's picked it up on channel 1. If you click the little lead next to in, there's also, it says monitoring, you can also turn on a noise gate. So if I turn noise gate on, what it can do is if I drag it further down, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, it can hear everything. But right now, as I pull it up, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So this is a double-edged sword with noise gate. You can turn the noise gate on, but it's going to affect the actual recording. You'll notice also at the top you've got inter-app audio, and this is where you can actually put effects in. So if you've got effects from other devices, you've got, like, for example, Rough Rider there is an EQ, so I could EQ it straight away. And of course, this is affecting the recording. What I want to do is I want to record as dry as I can, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to affect it later. So we're ready to record. I'm going to bring up the notes page once again. I'm going to have it on this side again, because that way, as you can hear, as I move from one across to the other, you can hear the difference so I can reference it. This time, I'm not going to need the metronome because I'm not going to be playing. So I'm going to turn the metronome off. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that the volume is how I want it.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all. Looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall? Take my hand and hold on tight. Let's dance tonight. Take my hand and hold me tight. Let's dance tonight. Take my hand and hold on tight. Let's dance tonight.
Okay, so we've done a first take. What we're going to do is I'm going to play that back. There's also going to be some harmonies in this, and there's also going to be a higher version. So I'm singing quite low right now, but there's also going to be an octave higher. So I'm going to add that and the harmonies in as well. So we've recorded our vocals. We've got the main vocal, which is quite low. So in the chorus, we've got an octave higher, and we've pulled that into what we call sweet chorus underneath. So we've got lead vocal, sweet chorus. The other two sweet choruses are harmonies, and they are only in the chorus section anyway. So I have recorded them and then copied and pasted them over. So I just wanted to give you an insight as to where those lyrics fit in the song, and we're going to move on to the instruments. So we've got our drums in there, we've recorded our guitar, and we've recorded the vocals and also some backing tracks that we might use later. And the next part I want to do is use the instruments inside GarageBand. The next bit I need is a bass, and I'm going to use one of their instruments, which is called a smart bass. So you've got smart bass there. In order to change the chords, all I need to do is go to the gear icon on the top right hand corner, and then you'll see while it's in this mode you'll have edit chords. If I tap edit chords, I can tap on each one individually, and then what it's going to do is it'll ask me what chord you want it to be. So I'm going to actually just change these around so they're the chords that I need for playing this song. So I've decided to go with the Smart Instruments upright bass. It's got a nice tune to it when I use the chord system. We're going to use the automatic chord system. We've now got the chords the way we want them, and I'm going to hit record. And what this does is it records it in MIDI. So the great thing about that is if I make a mistake, I can actually go in and edit it later. Okay, so we can see now that that's been recorded into MIDI, and what I can do with that MIDI is I can chop that up into sections and copy and paste that across the song. Okay, so we've copied and pasted the bass, and we've got all the bits that we need, including the double ending on the chorus. And the next thing I want is a bit of organ. Now there's two things I could do here. One, I could play on the screen, or I could incorporate my own keyboard onto this, which I'm going to do. Okay, so this is my Roland Juno DI, but what we've done is we've just used the USB to USB-C cable, plugged it into the hyperdrive, given it some power. And this is the great thing about iOS. When you plug in a musical keyboard, it just works. So this is great. I can now play the organ bits with the real keyboard and play that directly into GarageBand.
Take my hand and hold on tight. Let's dance tonight. Watch the fireflies buzz around.
Okay, cool. So I've got the parts that I need in. Yet again, just like the bass, I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to also record a higher part for the final chorus.
So kiss me quick, don't let me stare. You and me, still sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? You and me, let's dance tonight.
Okay. So the other keyboard sound I want to use is the piano. If I was recording on the screen, there is a sustain switch, but if you're using both hands, it's difficult to play. So I'm going to show you how to put the sustain in later.
Take my hand and hold tight. Let's dance tonight.
So we've got the piano down, a couple of more bits to go, and I think we're nearly there. Right then, one other thing I want to do is I'd like to double up the guitar. I could play it again, but actually I'm going to use the same recording and just have a different effect. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to hit the plus button and we're going to use the amp. Now I'm going to use a clean amp and just do a little bit of tweaking on it, but there's nothing there at the moment. So what we're going to have to do is just go back to the song. We're going to have to grab the audio file of the guitar I recorded, click copy, go right back to the beginning, and on this track we click paste. Now it is actually the same guitar, and I'm going to move it up so they're next door to each other so we can see them together. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit play, and then I'm going to start tweaking this second guitar around. quite like that sound actually. So what we need to do now is we need to have a look at the band, as it were, in its entirety. I'm going to just move things around just so they're in place. So I always like to have the bass right next door to the drums, and then we have the guitars, and then we've got the keyboards, and then the piano there, the organ and the piano, and then the vocals at the bottom. That way I know which order everything's in. I just like to do that. It's just one of my little things that I do just to tweak things around so I can see stuff. I always have the vocals at the bottom at the last part. That second guitar, I'll probably take a little bit of that out in the verse so it only comes back in for the chorus, just to give it a bit more level and oomph. So let's have a recap here. We've got our intro, our verse, our choruses, we've got our ending as well, which slows down at the end. We've got our upright bass, we've got the guitar we played in, we've doubled that over with a secondary guitar, we've got the organ playing low and high, we've got the grand piano, and we've got the vocals. Now obviously I've been tweaking around with the volumes just for my own hearing, but we've not been mixing it yet. That is in part 3. And also we're going to have a look at doing some tweaks to the vocals, make them sound a bit nicer, and also have a look at spatial awareness. At the moment everything is right in the middle, and if you were to look at a band on stage they wouldn't all stand like that. They'd be spaced out, and we need to make sure we have a stereo sound out for the whole band, as it were. So there we go guys, we've kind of got a song together. Now we've got to do a little bit of mixing and automation, and that's in part 3. In part 4 we're going to go through mastering, and part 5 is releasing that song out into the world. If you found this content useful, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me and helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that bell and then you won't miss when the next one comes out. A quick thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring this series of videos, and a big thank you to you guys. If you've subscribed to the channel already, that's amazing. The next video is all about mixing and automation, and we'll see you on the next video. Welcome to the third video in a series called From Idea to Release, and in this video we're going to show you all about mixing and automation in GarageBand iOS. Hey guys, it's JP from John Paul Music UK, and if this is your first time here and you want to learn all about music tech and looping, start now by hitting the subscribe button, click that bell, and you won't miss anything. So this is the third video in a 5-part series called From Idea to Release. We've had an idea for a song, we've recorded it in part 2, and now we're down to the mixing and automation in part 3. Right now, let's take a look at the song we recorded in part 2. So we have the drums, the bass guitar, we've got the acoustic guitar, which we doubled up on electric as well. We've got a soul organ, we've got low and high for that, a grand piano, we've got the main vocal, which is quite low, and then we've got another vocal, which is an octave higher, and we've got 2 harmonies as well. Now, a couple of things that I've done since the end of part 2. First of all, the drums, I'm just going to zoom in here, and I've actually taken little gaps, as we can see here, there as well, on the bar 74, bar 91, just to give the drummer a little bit of a space. And what I've done, a nice little tweak, if you have a look at it, it's actually just after the bar, so I haven't cut it off completely. The reason for doing that is because it will end with a bit of a crash on the cymbals, as opposed to just ending, so it gives it a nice little end before the drummer kicks back in again. I'll just play that now, and you can hear a little bit of the drummer. So it just gives a nice little gap. The other thing you'll notice from part 2 to now is the guitars. So what I've done is I've actually chopped the electric guitar out of verse 1 completely and out of the beginning of verse 2. But we're going to keep it in for verse 3, which is this section here, and then it's going to play continuously. And what I've done as well is, if you go into the guitar and we double tap that, I've just done a little bit of tweaking around the presence and also the EQ of the guitar itself. Now you'll notice on the left hand side I've got a lot of volume controls. If your GarageBand looks like this, all you need to do is swipe it out and then you'll see the volume controls. Now when I've been recording, I've always had that out to begin with, but you'll see I've just been mixing it kind of roughly, just so I know where things are. So the drums are quite near the top, and then the bass underneath that for the sense of volume. And then the other thing that's only louder is the main vocal. I'm going to bring them all down to 0 and then start bringing them up again. But there's a couple of things I need to do before we get into that. So before we get to the mixing stage, there's a couple of things I want to do, and one of the things I promised in part 2 was how to add sustain onto the piano when you don't have a sustain pedal. So I want to show you this very quickly, and there's one or two other things I'd like to do as well to clean up the audio for the vocals. So let's go into the piano roll now. We need to tap on what we've recorded, so we're going to tap on the green classical grand, and then if you tap it a second time, we have a couple of options, and one of those options we're going to go into is edit. When we click edit, it shows us the actual piano roll for the whole track. I can pinch and zoom in and I can move it around, and that's all fine. But the question is, where is the sustain? And where do you add sustain? So what you have to do is we have to actually turn on the right tool, which is in the top left-hand corner. As soon as we do that, you'll see at the very bottom it says sustain. I can actually tap on there and it adds a sustain note in. We can go through the whole track and add that in. Now, if you've done your recordings in parts, you could add that in, and if you copy and paste that, it will also copy and paste the sustain as well. I'm going to actually go back to the beginning, and we can then start adding in sustain right for where we need it. So if I give this a tap, I will just want the sustain to come off just before bar 5, and then we want to add a new one. So if I zoom out now on the classical grand, you can see the sustain there at the bottom, and then also what I've done is I've actually split up the classical grand because we need to do one or two things to it. You may not be in time, or you may be slightly out of time. You're not a robot. We're not expecting you to be. So what you have is you have quantization. Let me show you this now. What you can do is tap on a section of MIDI, go to settings, and you can set the quantization to how many quarter notes or eighth notes or 16 notes of the bar the MIDI note shifts into. So say you play it slightly out, what it'll do is it shift it to the closest bar or beat part of that beat for you. You can have it straight, you can have it in triplet or swing, and what you'll remember from part 2 is at the end of this song I actually play without the click track, or play against the click track. This track slows down at the very end, so I don't want it to shift to the nearest bar because then it'll be completely out. So the very end of the piano I've actually taken the quantization completely off, so it's in time with me playing the guitar. Also, what I've done is I've just split it up so there aren't any MIDI notes going in where the gaps are, so then we get a nice little stab, so there's no sustain, there's no playing of that note whatsoever. It makes it a little bit more interesting when you go into the chorus. So if I go into the main vocal, if I double tap that, we are now in radio ready. Obviously, if you tap the middle, there are lots of different settings you can do and use. Also, I've just changed the way the harmonies sound a little bit. I've pulled them quite down in the mix. I just want them to be there, but not too forward. And also, when we did record them, I then set them to sweet chorus. I've changed my mind. So we're going to now use punchy presence. So let's have a listen to all the vocals together. So if I solo all 4, I'm just going to go straight to the chorus so you can have a listen to it.
Home for our first draft. You and me, we're just sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see?
Okay, so not bad. I think the backing vocals need a little bit of work. So what I'm going to do is, when you tapped on a track, what you can do is you can tap on the settings for that track. The settings for this track, they have no reverb on them really. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring a little reverb into each one. So just remember which track you're on before you start changing this. So just make sure the one that's grey, it does say punchy presence at the top there, but there are 2 that are called punchy presence, and just make sure you're on the right one. So we're going to bring in the reverb, and then we've got a little bit of compression on each one. I'm going to go into plugins and EQ. This is where you can really start dialing in what you want from each vocal. So if I double tap this now, you can see we've got low, high, compressor, delay, and ambience. But if you go into plugins and EQ, you can actually dial into the compressor and start messing around with it. So if you want to add it to the mix, you only want it to 50%, or you want the ratio. The ratio at the moment is 17:1. I actually want to dial that back to just around about 2:1. The gain's a little bit further down, and that's fine. These plugins and EQs, we've got effect EQ, we've got tape delay, we've got stereo delay, and a visual EQ. But if I tap edit, you can actually see that they are all taking up a space. Now the compressor is there always, and the visual EQ is always there. So what you can find is you've got loads of effects, and they're built in, but what you've also got is audio unit extensions. I've done another video on audio unit extensions, AUV3s, which I can put on a card and also in the description. But when you go into them, these are all the different ones you can get by Apple, you can get by like companies like Blue Mango, and there's all the different ones. We've got the effects there from TC Helicon. So what I can do is I can grab one of these and add it into GarageBand. So I'm going to go with the TC Helicon Voice Live Rack, and if we go into this now, we've got access to that app directly in GarageBand. So let's pull this back. I've soloed just the bottom harmony, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have a listen and start playing around with it. Me, tree, me, tree, hold on tight, high from here, see me, tree. Okay, cool. So I've just brought the other one in just to compare it, and the one that I quite like is called Echo Verb. So I'm going to apply that to the other punchy presence. So we'll grab that. Let's have a look. Let's add that in. Let's go back to that one, and let's tap on there. And let's grab that one as well. There it is, Echo Verb. So now what we've got is we've got this echoey reverb that's been added in to the backing vocals. You and me, we're just sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? So it just gives you a little bit of an insight into what you can do with the plugins and the EQ. So talking about EQ, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the lead vocal. So let's go into the lead vocal. I've already applied something on here which is called Rough Rider 2. If you haven't got it and you've got GarageBand, I really recommend it. It's a really good plugin. So there's two ways we can do EQ. We've always got the visual EQ here, and this visual EQ is a 3-band EQ, and we've got the main gain on the right-hand side. But what I want to do is I want to go a bit deeper than that. There's a really good EQ, and a big shout out to Pete Johns for this one. If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, go and check it out. He showed out a great extension, which is LRC5. This is a 5-band parametric EQ. So if you start moving that up and down, you've got those there, you can move them. But if you select one and then use pinch, you can actually really dial in on the frequency that you want. So this one does come with a couple of presets, which are quite nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a flat for now, and then I'll start playing around. Now I need to listen to the whole track for this, just so I can hear what it sounds like relative to the whole track. So I'm going to unmute everything. I'm going to have a listen to this right from the beginning of the vocal and see where we head up.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all, looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall? We can always find a nice little place and call it home for our first draft.
So I'm quite happy with that. Now what I need to do is I need to have a look at a little bit of automation. Imagine if there was one website that you could take all your fans to, no matter whether they listen to you on Spotify or Apple Music or any streaming site, and they can get your music. Well, now there is, and it's called Hyperfollow by DistroKid. Let me explain. Let's say you want to tell people about your releases on Spotify or Apple Music. Instead of trying to send them directly to your album page or artist page, you can send them to your Hyperfollow page. There's some real benefits to doing this. For example, anyone who clicks the button on your Hyperfollow page will automatically follow you on Spotify. In addition to this, the button will automatically save your music to their library, and you'll be given each fan's email address. You'll even be able to see the other music that your fans are listening to, even if that artist is not being distributed through DistroKid. You'll also get geographic information about your fans. You'll also know how many people visited the Hyperfollow page and how many followers added you. Another great option is pre-save. If you've uploaded your release to DistroKid and it's not yet live with Spotify, Hyperfollow automatically turns into a pre-save service. Fans can click the button at any time, even before your album or single or EP goes live. DistroKid will then detect the moment your album goes live and will automatically add all your new followers and saves on your release day. DistroKid will even email those followers and let them know when they can start listening. Hyperfollow is a free service for all DistroKid users, no matter which tier of DistroKid you're using, and it supports all your releases through DistroKid, even your previously released tracks. So what have you got to do to get this up and running? Go to your DistroKid account and sign in. Click on Settings, which is the gear icon, and then click Hyperfollow. Just remember, Hyperfollow is a free service. It comes free with your DistroKid membership. If you've not yet signed up, it's normally $19.99 for an entire year for unlimited uploads. But we've given you a special link that's on the screen now. It gives you 7% off your first year's annual membership, no matter which tier you pick. So thank you to DistroKid for helping us with this link, and also thank you to you guys for supporting the channel as well. Right, let's have a look at some automation. Automation is where things automatically happen. So for example, maybe I want to fade something in or fade something out. So what I can do is I can tell GarageBand to do this automatically. So if you have to listen to the very end where everything is playing, you can hear the end of where they play the guitar, where I stop the track, and you can hear the audio. So I want to automate the fade out for that. So what we do is we click on the icon, and this time we click automation. This expands it a little bit, and we can see it's a writing tool, just like the writing tool in, say, for example, edit mode, like the piano roll mode. But what this does is it gives you volume automation. So if I move this up and down, you can see there is a line there. It tells you where it normally is. I'm going to use this here just so we can start fading it out. I'm going to fade it about there. And then I'm just going to use the write tool. So if I use the writing tool, turn that on, I can then start creating little dots. And then I create a dot for where I want it to start and dot where I want it to end. And then I'm just going to pull that down. This creates a yellow line. And what this means now is if I actually turn this off and come out of GarageBand, you'll notice that the guitar tracks have a little yellow marker around the volume. And what this is telling me that it's got automation on that track. So now as I play the ending, you can see they move automatically. And that's a much nicer ending. We can go deeper than that. We can go into any track for automation, whether it's a MIDI file or whether it's one you've recorded in yourself. Even the drummer track can be automated. It depends on what you want to do. So we can write automation in, and you can then drag these little dots around to actually tell it where to be. Say, for example, you've got a guitar solo. You might want to elevate that, but then bring down the organ, for example. You could do things like that. If then I find I've mixed this track and those guitars are too loud, I then need to change it in the automation, not the main window. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the automation off on the guitars for now, and then what we can do is I can set the volume and then bring that fade in back later. So my little tip for mixing is actually to bring everything down to 0 and then start bringing stuff up gradually. You need a good pair of headphones or a good pair of speakers to mix. And just remember that your ears are a muscle, just like any other muscle in your body. They do get tired. Don't sit there and mix for hours and hours on end. You'll end up coming away with something you're really not gonna like. Or you mix it, think it's great. You'll come back the next day and go, what was that? Just make sure that you're having rest periods in between mixing. It's just a really good tip. And make sure you go and listen to something that you want to reference as well. So if you know a certain track that you think, that's what I kind of want to sound like, go and listen to that track, listen to the drums, listen to the bass, listen to the guitars, see where they sit, and we'll have a listen to it. The other thing we're going to do with mixing this track, as I said before in part 2, is have a look at the spatial awareness. So to do that, what we do is we can actually tap on each individual instrument, and we can go to the settings, and we can actually have a look at the track pan. So the track pan is where it sits between left and right. Normally they all sit to center, and that's fine when it's a stereo system like the drums. So the drums I won't change, but for something, so for example, like with the vocals, I might change the panning of that slightly. So what I normally like to do is start with the drums and actually bring them up slowly, then bring the bass up, and then bring the vocals in, and then bring the main thing that goes with the vocals. In this instance, it's the guitar, then bring the piano in, then bring all the other elements in, which is things like the organ, the other guitar, and then the backing vocals to finish.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all.
Just remember, once I've actually brought this up, it doesn't mean that's the final position. I'm going to be tweaking this in and out of the song.
Looking at the stars above us, did you ever fear you'd fall? Now we're in this game together, you and me. We're still sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see? You and me, we're just sitting in this tree. Take my hand and hold on tight. Let's dance tonight.
So one thing to always point out is don't follow this visually. Have a listen to your ears. Listen to it, and if you like the bass, turn the bass up. That's fine. If you prefer the keys a little bit higher into the right-hand side, do that. No problem at all. This is your choice. So I'm going to carry on mixing this track the way I want it. You may mix it very differently. And then when we get to the end of this, we'll have a mix, and then we're going to go on to mastering.
Let's dance tonight.
Okay, so I think I've got a mix, but I've been listening to it on these headphones the whole way through. With mastering, if there's a problem in the mix stage, it will show up in mastering, and you can't change that in mastering. You have to go back to the mix stage and change it here before we move on. So make sure it sounds pretty much correct before you carry on. Louder is not essentially better. Have a listen to this really quietly. So a couple of tips for mixing. Have a listen to it in your headphones, have a listen to it on monitors if you've got them, have a listen to it on a hi-fi, have a listen to it on really budget headphones, have a listen to it in a car, and if they all sound relatively the same on all of them, you've got yourself a good mix. Remember to leave yourself a little bit of headroom, so -3 to -6 dB. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down a couple as we go into mastering. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much. It really helps the channel grow. Please subscribe to the channel, click that bell, and you won't miss anything. A quick thank you to our sponsor DistroKid for sponsoring this series, and we'll see you on the next video, which is part 4, which is mastering. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different ways we can master a track that was made on GarageBand iOS. Hey guys, JP here. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before and you want to learn all about music tech and looping, start now by hitting the subscribe button, click that bell, and you won't miss anything. This is episode 4 in the 5-part series From Idea to Release. We've had an idea and we've got that idea down. We've recorded it in GarageBand, we've mixed it in GarageBand, and now I'm going to show you different ways we can master that track. So mastering is the final step in audio post-production. The whole purpose of mastering is to balance all the sonic elements of a stereo mix and optimize your song so it can be played across all different kinds of systems. Think about the speakers in your phone, and then think about the speakers in, say, a club. Think about the speakers on a stereo. The audio quality should be universal across all of these devices. Now, mastering is seen as a little bit of a dark art, and mastering engineers are able to push the boundaries of your sound without compromising on the audio quality and making the sound unified. So to get this track out of GarageBand so we can master it, we need a stereo mix. Now in a previous video I've been talking about making sure you've got headroom, so I've been talking about -3 to -6 dB. If I was to just export this track as it is now, GarageBand does auto normalization. So what that'll do is it'll actually bring it back up to 0 dB even if you turn down the master volume. So what we need to do is we need to do a little trick. And what we're going to show you is using the effects tab. So if we now tap on effects, it will bring up an effects tab, and what we're going to do is we're just going to record for around about 2 or 3 bars just to get an effects channel on the mix. That's all we need. I'm going to get rid of the effects themselves, and we now have an effects channel, as you can see there at the bottom. There's the little purple marker there where I recorded something in. We're actually going to get rid of that completely. So we select the effects track, and this is where we can get a master channel. So if we go to the settings, and we've got the visual EQ there, if we tap on the visual EQ, we've got the visual EQ and that's fine. But on the right hand side, we've actually got gain. And this is a little bit of a trick we can do with GarageBand, where I can now actually pull this back about 5 dB, and then it's going to change the whole track. So now when I export it, it's going to be -5 dB. I'm not going to play around with the EQ at all. So we click done, then we're going to click on the little documents at the top here, and what this will do is it will save it. So now we're here, we're just going to tap on the song. We click share, it gives us the options for song, ringtone or project. So we need song. We need one stereo mix so we can master that track. We're going to click song, and we want the highest quality available, which is 44.1 kilohertz at 24 bits. So if we click share, it's then going to say what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to go open in. It'll then export the song. Now, depending on which iPad you have, or if you're doing it on the iPhone, it may take a little bit of time, a couple of minutes. Obviously be patient while it's creating that track for you. Cool, so we've got the You and Me track. It says audio recording, 68.9 megabytes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click Save to Files. When we hit Save to Files, it's just going to give us where you want to store it. So if I click Save to Files now, so you can save it in a couple of different places. So we've got on my iPad, iCloud Drive. You can save it to Dropbox, or if you've got any other online storage. For now, I'm going to save it onto on my iPad so I can grab it later. I've got a folder here that I've already set up, which is called Audio Masters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in there. Now we've got the track actually mixed, what we're going to do is we're going to grab that stereo track so we can master it. So we're going to click a brand new track. So we just need a track to be launched on GarageBand. So I'm going to use the audio recorder. And then we're not actually going to use the actual audio recorder. We just need to get to this point. And then I just need to make sure that we're not in 8 bars and we're in automatic. So once we've got that set up with automatic, all we then need to do is go into where it says loops. We need to grab the file. It's not there right now. So we go browse items in the files app. On my iPad, I've got that folder I created before, which is Audio Masters. And there it is, You and Me. So if we tap on it, give it a second, and then what it's going to do, it's going to bring it into GarageBand in the Files app. So now if I scroll down, there it is, youandme.wav. So if I hold that down, I can drag that in. We can now get rid of the other microphone track, and then all we do is use pinch to pinch out, and there is our file. For mastering, we're going to be spending most of our time in plugins and EQ. The reason is because we're going to be adding a couple of things to actually make this a mastered track. So the next thing we need to do is make sure we've got a little bit of a gap for the track. Some playing services like Spotify actually mix tracks from one to the other. The second I hit play, you start hearing the you start hearing the hi-hats. So what we want to do is we want to actually move it ever so slightly, just for a couple of seconds, just so we can actually get a little bit of space. There we go. First of all, we're going to take as many effects as we can off so it's flat. So there is one there that's called Effect EQ. We can get rid of that straight away. You're always left with a noise gate, a compressor, and a visual EQ. The only one I'm really going to be playing with is the compressor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the visual EQ up to the top. So we've got the compressor there straight away. I want to put a limiter on this so it doesn't go past 0 dB. So once I start adding more things in, we're going to play with that, like 0 to 3, 0.6 dB. We're going to start gradually going back up to 0, but we don't want it to punch through that hole. You're going to get digital distortion and it will sound terrible. So what I'd like to do is add a limiter in. Now when you go to this, it says effects and you've got audio unit extensions. Now I've got a couple from other companies, but there are some audio unit extensions that are from Apple. You don't see them as standard, and they're all these orange ones right here. So if you do want to see them, all you need to do is come out of GarageBand completely and then just go to your settings. Scroll down till you find GarageBand. There it is. And then all you need to do is scroll down again, and it says Enable iOS Effect Plugins. And these are switch on to make the Apple iOS Effect Plugins available in your GarageBand projects. And there's some really good ones that are there. So we can go straight back to GarageBand, go to the bottom one first, and then what we'll do is look at audio unit extensions. We're going to have a look at adding a limiter. So the Apple one is AU peak limiter. So if we add that in now, and you'll see a little orange tab there. So these plugins aren't visually the best, but they are plugins by Apple, which are the ones from GarageBand on the Mac, and they do the job. So if I tap on peak limiter, it just shows you a very basic thing. It gives you attack time, release time, pre-gain, and listening amount. So I'm going to play the track, and I'm going to start messing around with it just so you can hear what effect it's doing.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all. Looking at the stars above us.
Now, one thing you'll notice when you start making changes whilst it's playing, you may hear a little bit of clicking, certainly when you're playing with things like limiters or attack times. Don't worry about that. It's not that there's something wrong with your audio. It's just as it's adjusting, the computer is figuring out what you need to do.
Did you ever fear you'd fall?
Okay, so that's a good start. We're going to leave that there for now. We are going to come back to it a little bit later because I'm going to actually now, even though I've added it, I'm going to turn that off. Now, there's a reason. What we're going to do is we're going to start playing with the compressor, and the compressor is going to compress the whole track. So we need to compress it just a little bit so it can actually push the quieter bits up, and then the limiter is going to make sure we don't peak. So we turn the limiter off for now. We've got a base for where we need it to be, and then we're going to go into the compressor. Now, if you know how to use a compressor, fantastic. If you're not sure, there are obviously loads of instructional videos out there in the world, but with the compression, what I normally find is if you feel like you get a pumping sound from the compression, it's working too hard. You need to dial it back a little bit. So let's have a listen now. We're going to start playing around with the compressor.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all. Looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
Got the compressor in there, and what I also want to do is just play around slightly with the EQ to sweeten it a little bit. Now, there's two ways you can do this. With the EQ, you've got the actual visual EQ, and we can play around with that. It is a basic EQ. You can't actually play with what's called the Q, which makes sure that the actual shape of the EQ flattens or widens. So from the previous video, I showed you the other plugin, which is LRC5, which is a parametric EQ. So we can then use that and then start playing around with the whole mix. So I'm going to click edit again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in our LRC5. My best advice, I know it sounds silly to say this, is just listen. Sometimes when everything is so visual, you get buried into, oh, that's higher than there on there, and I can see that's higher on there. What does it sound like? You need to have a listen to what it sounds like. If it sounds okay, if it's a little bit sweeter in the top end, or if it's a little bit muddy in the bass, adjust it accordingly.
Looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall? Now we're in this game together. And luck, she's walking on my path. We can always find a nice little place. Call it home for our first draft. You and me, we're just sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see?
Okay, so let's just do a little recap. We've got the noise gate we're not using and the visual EQ we're not using. They're always going to be there anyway. But we're using a compressor, we're using the LRC5, which is an EQ, and then we're also using a peak limiter. And that's pretty much it. So what I've done is I've turned them all off. I'm going to play the track and then I'm going to turn them all back on one at a time so you can hear what they're doing.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all. Looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
For the purpose of demonstrating this to you today, obviously I've mastered this on headphones. Again, if you're mastering on speakers, just listen to it on a couple of different things. But now what we need to do, say that's our mastered track, we need to then get that out of GarageBand completely as a mastered WAV so we can then send that out and release it. So how we do this is very simple. Same process as we did before. We just tap on the document icon. It's now saving it. Of course, it's now just called My Song. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename that. So we're going to call it You and Me, and I'm going to call it, big capital letters, Mastered GB. So it's Mastered GarageBand. Okay, so if we click done on that now, if I then hold that down, we can click share again, exactly the same. We're going to go to song, we're going to do the highest quality we can, which is 44.1 24-bit. Click share, and then what we do is we go open in. It's now going to remake that song, but with the adjustments we've made for mastering, and then that is ready for you to actually start playing with. So all we need to do is just put it somewhere. So we're going to go to save the files. I'm going to go back to where we were before on my iPad and go audio masters, and then save it in there. So the second way I want to show you how you can master a track is actually using an iOS app. There are actually quite a few mastering apps. If you just search mastering in iOS, you'll actually find there's quite a few there. There's different ones by different companies and they're all different prices, but one that I've actually used in the past and one that I'm very familiar with is one called Final Touch. Final Touch is actually made by Positive Grid and it is a dedicated mastering app. Now this app hasn't been updated for a little while, but it's still a fantastic app to master with, and it's very, very simple. And we've got a nice little workaround for you today to get the track that we've actually saved for in the iPad into Final Touch. Okay, so to get our track into Final Touch, what you would normally do in Final Touch when you actually have a look at it, it's actually got tap to load audio projects, and we can go import song, and there's a couple of options there, but it doesn't have the Files app yet. So what we need to do is, the quickest way to do this is audio paste. So let's come out of this, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Files app, we're going to go into our tracks. Now we're not going to use the mastered one we've just done, we're going to use the first one. And if we tap on it, there's our track, we can play it, but what we're going to do is we're going to click out, and what we're going to do is we're going to click copy. If we do that, it copies it to the iOS clipboard, and then if we go back into here, we can go back into Final Touch, tap on here, import song, and go to audio paste. We're going to give it a name, so we're going to go You and Me, that'll do. Click done, and then it just says audio paste from the pasteboard. Click that, it's pasted it in, and there is our track. So at the very, very top, we've got a playhead, we've got an ACC, so you can listen to it what would be like in iTunes Plus, and then we've got the actual beginning and end here, the wave format. And then what you have is at the bottom, ignore the middle bit for a second, because the middle bit is dictated by the bottom. So at the very, very bottom, we've got Positive Grid on and off, so we can turn it completely off and just listen to the track as it is. But what we've got here at the bottom is the 6 different mastering tools that you can use with Final Touch, starting with pre-EQ. Now there's an orange line at the bottom here. Now as I turn this on, I can actually then bring these down, and these are going to affect the track. So you've got pre-EQ, you've got reverb, you've got the dynamics, you've got stereo imaging, post-EQ, and then the maximizer. So the great thing about Final Touch is we can dive straight into things like the dynamics and start playing with the multi-band compressor, which is amazing, go into the stereo imaging, we can go into reverb, etc, etc. But also, they've got a load of presets. So underneath where the big power button is, there are presets, and we can actually go into specific instruments, or we can just go into general. We've got broadcast, genre-based instruments, general purpose, post-production, special effects, and utility. I can go into things like post-production. We've got things like voiceover or for effects. We've also got things like special effects, so bass maker, cymbals only, guitar amp. What I prefer to do, because obviously this is a full musical track, go into genre-based. So there's loads of different genre-based ones there. We've got country, we've got hip-hop, house, jazz. We've got boosts, so the basic ones. We've got boosts, we've got widening, we've got rock. We've got lots of different ones there. So I'm going to start playing around with it. So if I went into something like country rock, and then it'll change it. If I go to country pop, that'll change again. So let's go with country rock for now, and then what we can do is we can get out of this and then start having a listen to see what it sounds like. So I'm going to turn positive grid off. We're going to just hit play, and I'm going to turn it back on, and you'll hear the difference. Now I'm just going to turn it off.
I can't fall asleep at all, looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
So this is fantastic. What we can do is we can just hit a preset, turn it on, and actually get everything we need. Almost like we've just handed it to a mastering engineer and they've done it for us. So I like the way it's done it, and all I need to do is get it out of Final Touch. Now currently it doesn't actually support iOS 13 Files app, but it does support Audio Share. If you don't know what Audio Share is, it's a fantastic app, and think of it like the audio file management system for your iPad. So what you can do is you can click on this, we can go to Audio Share, we can say what we want. So we're going to go you and me mastered. I'm going to do 24-bit. We're going to have it in WAV, and we click export. Now what it's doing is it's bouncing the track down, a little bit like we bounced the track down in GarageBand. It's making that live for us, and then all we need to do is open Audio Share. It'll put it directly in. Now once it's in Audio Share, what you can then do, of course, you can then put that anywhere you like. So we can then put that into files if you want to. We can actually then send it out to where we release the track. Imagine if there was one website that you could take all your fans to, no matter whether they listen to you on Spotify or Apple Music or any streaming site, and they can get your music. Well, now there is, and it's called Hyperfollow by DistroKid. Let me explain. Let's say you want to tell people about your releases on Spotify or Apple Music. Instead of trying to send them directly to your album page or artist page, you can send them to your Hyperfollow page. There's some real benefits to doing this. For example, anyone who clicks the button on your Hyperfollow page will automatically follow you on Spotify. In addition to this, the button will automatically save your music to their library, and you'll be given each fan's email address. You'll even be able to see the other music that your fans are listening to, even if that artist is not being distributed through DistroKid. You'll also get geographic information about your fans. You'll also know how many people visited the Hyperfollow page and how many followers added you. Another great option is pre-save. If you've uploaded your release to DistroKid and it's not yet live with Spotify, Hyperfollow automatically turns into a pre-save service. Fans can click the button at any time, even before your album or single or EP goes live. DistroKid will then detect the moment your album goes live and will automatically add all your new followers and saves on your release day. DistroKid will even email those followers and let them know when they can start listening. Hyperfollow is a free service for all DistroKid users, no matter which tier of DistroKid you're using, and it supports all your releases through DistroKid, even your previously released tracks. So what have you got to do to get this up and running? Go to your DistroKid account and sign in. Click on Settings, which is the gear icon, and then click Hyperfollow. Just remember, Hyperfollow is a free service. It comes free with your DistroKid membership. If you've not yet signed up, it's normally $19.99 for an entire year for unlimited uploads. But we've given you a special link that's on the screen now. It gives you 7% off your first year's annual membership, no matter which tier you pick. So thank you to DistroKid for helping us with this link, and also thank you to you guys for supporting the channel as well. So the third way that I want to show you how we can master a track that we made in GarageBand is by using a mastering service. This is where you send your audio file to a company. What they do is they master it for you and then send it back. When I say send it, we're sending it digitally and it arrives basically in a couple of minutes. What I want to show you today, which I think is one of the best, I've actually used these guys previously and they're called CloudBounce. So if you go into the internet, have a look at cloudbounce.com. The reason why I like this is because you can preview the track even before you've paid for it. So when you go to cloudbounce.com, there is a pricing and the price for it is $4.90. So what we can do is we're going to go and grab that file. So I just tap browse and then we go onto iPad. Now I've got audio masters. Now obviously I'm not going to pick one of the mastered ones. We're just going to go for the you and me. And if I tap on that right now, what it'll do is it'll literally just upload it straight to them. So we'll transfer the audio over to CloudBounce. And then whilst that's happening, it says, feel free to click on the master button. Mastering will start as soon as the file's uploaded. And you've got a couple of options as well. So we can go choose mastering options, and that's what we're going to do today. So if I tap on that, we've got choose mastering options. If I scroll this down a little bit, we've got mastering options of which style you want. So we've got a default style, we've got hip hop, we've got electronic, we've got all these different ones. So I'm going to go with rock and pop. That's what I like. And if you go back to where it says mastering options and tap on that, it's got this little honeycomb style thing here where you can go louder, warmer, less warm, less loud, brighter, more. And so there's lots of options here. So what I want to do is I want it a little bit brighter. So whilst this is uploaded, you can actually choose. And the great thing about this is you can re-choose before you commit to it. So you can have a listen, and what they do is they give you a little playhead to play the track between mastered and unmastered, and you can hear the difference. What I really like about this is through the power of the internet that we're actually sending this through to CloudBounce, and obviously they process it and then send it back, and they send a low quality version for you to preview, and then if you commit to it, you'll get the full quality versions. Now you get the MP3, you get a 16-bit WAV, and you get a 24-bit WAV as well. The great thing with iOS 13 on the iPad is that when you browse the internet using Safari, it's the desktop version. So I don't have to go to a computer to actually finalize a master. I can actually drop it in right here. So now we get this, which says it's waiting in the queue, and then what it'll do is it'll do analyzing and processing the signal. There we go, it's already analyzing and processing it. And this is not happening on my iPad, this is happening at the other end at cloudbounce.com. And then what it'll do is it'll then send me the low quality version back to have a listen to, just to see basically what it sounds like. And if I'm happy with it, I can then pay for it. Here we go. Okay, cool. So we've got the track mastered successfully. It says, please take a listen. So this is what it looks like before you pay for it, or to log in and pay for it. And what it does is it shows you the WAV file, and there's a big play button, and there's an option there which says mastered. If you tap that, you can go from mastered to unmastered. So I'm going to put the headphones on. We're going to have a listen, see what it sounds like. Now the great thing about this is before we get going, it says underneath, edit this master. Do you want to tweak the sound a little bit? So you can actually tweak it, and then you have to send it back, and then you have to wait for it to come back again, and they remaster it for you. This option is fantastic because actually you can tweak it the way you want. So I'm going to hit play. We'll have a listen to it mastered. Let's have a look what it looks like unmastered. Now let's turn mastering back on.
I can't settle.
So let's go a little bit further in. Let's go to that big part there.
Bumpers. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
So there's a definite improvement there, and this is one of the many different mastering services that are out there in the world. And then what you can do is you can log in and then go and grab that full version. So now what I've done is I've logged in and I can actually download the master. But have a look at the bottom here. It says, do you want the stamp of approval from award-winning ears? If this track means a lot to you and you've got the budget, you can actually send this track to Abbey Road Studios. So guaranteed turnaround time is 5 business days. And then what they'll do is they'll actually get a human to actually master it for you. One of their mastering engineers will actually do it for you. It is $120 per track, but it is one of those things where if you want to take it to the next level, they will sort that for you. Now I'm going to use the track that they've got here. I already have an account with cloudbounce.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go download this master, and then what it's going to go is it's going to say we're processing the final master for you. It does take a couple of minutes to get that sorted. It's available on your cloudbounce.com dashboard, and then you can download it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download that track, and we're going to bring it into Audio Share and show you the difference between that, the mastered one we did in GarageBand, and the one that we did in Final Touch. So I've just brought you to the app Audio Share. The reason I've brought you here is because I've put all the tracks that we've done today into Audio Share. So that we start with the youandme.wav. That is the one which we mixed, and we brought that mix out. That's before we mastered it. And I just want to show you the audio wave format. So this is You and Me, and you can see the audio wave format here as I move my finger across. And we can see that it's actually not at the top. The top would be 0 dB. Now, the next one up from that is audio, You and Me Mastered GB. Now, look at the difference. This is actually when we started putting our own stuff on there, like the compressor, the LRC5, and you can see there that the audio wave format is much bigger. And then one on top of that, this one is actually the one that was done with Final Touch. And it's very similar to the one that we mastered. A little bit of change there. Final Touch does have a lot of things going on at the same time. So it's got a multi-band compressor, it's got a maximizer, it's got stereo imaging as well. And a final one there at the bottom, you can see mastered with CloudBounce. So there's a loads of difference there between the one that we actually mixed out, and you can physically see it on the actual wave format, but also there's slight variations when you hear it actually in the headphones. So why am I showing you 3 different ways to master? Well, first of all, you've got to remember that mastering in GarageBand is completely free. Even the LRC5 plugin is free. So we've got a free master as well as mixing. And the other two, when we go mastered with Final Touch you have to pay for that app. It's £15 at the moment. And then CloudBounce is a pay per track mastering service, which is fantastic, and it's only a couple of pounds, or about $5, $4.90, but you can master completely free yourself with GarageBand. Now, I wanted to show you those 3 different ways because there is more than one way to do mastering, and obviously you have to learn what a compressor does, what limiting will do to your track in order to get the best out of it. A quick thank you to DistroKid, who are sponsoring this series, and if you haven't done it yet, have a look at the link that's on the screen now. It gives you 7% off your first annual subscription with DistroKid, so you can release as much music as you want for 2020. If you want to support this channel a little bit further, then there's a couple of nice links in the description box, including buymeacoffee.com, so you can buy me a coffee and keep it going. If you haven't yet already, click the subscribe button, hit that bell, and you'll know when the next video goes live, which is all about releasing this song out into the world using DistroKid so we can put it on all the streaming sites. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can release the song that we've made in GarageBand iOS to all the streaming sites and all the music platforms. Hey guys, JP here. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before and you want to learn all about music tech and looping, start now by hitting the subscribe button, click that bell, and you won't miss anything. This is episode 5 in the series From Idea to Release. We've had an idea and we've got that idea down using music memos. We've recorded that song in GarageBand iOS. We've mixed it in GarageBand iOS. We've also had 3 different ways of mastering a song with GarageBand, CloudBounce, and also using a mastering app. And now we're going to distribute that song and release it using DistroKid.
This series is sponsored by DistroKid. Upload unlimited songs, EPs and albums to all the major online stores and streaming sites like Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon, Google Play, Tidal, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Deezer, and over 150 more around the world, all for just $19.99 a year. And keep 100% of your royalties. Get 7% off your first year's membership with our special VIP link that's on the screen now, and it's also in the description box below.
So I'm going to log into my DistroKid account and show you step by step how we upload this song. But there's a couple of things we're going to need first. First of all, I'm going to need album artwork. Now, to do this on an iOS device is really simple. There's loads of apps out there. You can edit a photograph and add some text on top. For me, my app of choice is Procreate. It's a professional drawing tool. However, I use it quite differently. So I use it for my YouTube cards, but I also use it for creating album artwork. What I've done is I've used one of my photographs that I took, which was in Stour Head. It's a National Trust area in the UK, and it's a photograph of looking up at a load of trees. The lyric is you and me sitting in a tree, so it kind of fits. I've taken that into Procreate, I've just added some titles on the top and given those titles some colors. Ideally, make sure your artwork is 3000 by 3000 pixels. That's ideal because obviously depending on which site it's going to go onto, they may enlarge that photograph. You want a really high quality photograph. You don't want it to be on a Mac or a PC and be blown up to size only to be really low quality. The other thing you're going to need is actually all the details of the people who have created the song with you. Now for me, it's just me. I've just written that song, but if you're a band or a duo or a trio, you need to write down all the people who were involved. If you've had sound engineers or if you've had people helping you and they need crediting, you need to make sure you've got a list of them as well. Now, no musician likes to pigeonhole themselves, but you're going to have to figure out what kind of genre this song is. So for me, I'm going to pick folk and pop and see what is there in DistroKid and see if I can actually put that into some kind of subgroup. There's a couple of extra options inside DistroKid, so we're going to jump in now. I'm going to show you the account and show you how we can upload it. Okay, so here we are at distrokid.com. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sign in as me, and then what we're going to do is we're going to load this page up and we're going to upload this song. So if we click upload and we get this page, this is where we're going to start loading everything up. So first of all, you've got the stores. I always leave everything ticked, mainly because it says at the bottom there, MediaNet and 150 plus smaller outlets, such as, and there's loads of examples. I think it's good to leave them on there because there are a lot of smaller outlets. Maybe your stuff gets shown on them, which is grand. So it says previously released, no, the artist name, so there is me, John Paul. What it's now doing underneath here, it's finding out which one is you. So that is me, that's my artist title there. And then I know from Spotify, unfortunately, I am number 2 out of number 1 from John Paul's. We're going to release this as quick as humanly possible, so we're not going to put a release date on other than today. And then if you want to do a pre-order, it's got to be done with about 7 days, about 1 week before if you want to pre-order it. My record label is just John Paul Music UK. And then the album cover, it says PNG, JPEG or GIF extension is optimal. Obviously preferred to be square, which is what we've done. And the optimal size is 3000 by 3000. Choose or drag. So we've got it here and we're just going to drag it in and add it in. It's as simple as that. Now, the one thing I really like about DistroKid is it says things like don't increase the size of the smaller images, don't make them bigger, obviously it'd be blurry. What it'll tell you the store will reject, and also that you own this artwork. Don't go pulling artwork off Google that is stock image that you don't either own or have not paid for. Please use your own imagery. The language, English, and as I said before, we're going to have a look at the genres now and see what we can pick into this. So I think it's quite a poppy track, but let's have a quick look. We've got rock, we've got pop, have we got folk? Yes, we have. I'm going to put it down as folk first, and then the secondary, I'll put it down as pop, and we'll just see where we go from there. The track itself, track title, is You and Me, and that's it. Now, if you've got featured artists, this is where you can use different words, parts, volumes, anything like that, capitalizations, and not using anything weird. But then you've got the audio file. Make sure it is the highest quality you can actually produce. And what we do is we just go choose file, and then what we're going to do is we'll go to our desktop, and it is right there, You and Me. And we're going to choose that one. That will then put you and me.wav there, that's fine. And it asks if you already got an ISRC code. If you don't know what an ISRC code is, it's a special code that is given to every song in the world, so that song can then be trackable, and therefore they can actually find out when it's been played, how long it's been played for, so you can get paid. Now, songwriter, I wrote the song, I managed the songwriter, or it's an original tune, or someone else wrote the song and it's a cover song. So obviously this one is original. The songwriter's real name, and explicit lyrics, no. Is this a radio edit? No, it's always been clean anyway. Instrumental, no. So preview clip start time, let streaming services decide, or let me specify when the good parts start. And this is for Apple Music and iTunes, and also things like Tik-Tok. So you've then got the track price, which you can pick. I'd always just leave it at the middle one. There's some extra optional bits here, and I always would recommend get that one ticked. It's completely free, and it means that your track is then available on Instagram and Facebook. So if you then want to make a story about, hey, my song's out, you can actually use the song in your Instagram stories, and it's completely free to do so. Now, you can do things like YouTube money, and you can have YouTube ad revenue from matches that they detect. Store Maximizer will automatically deliver to new stores as they add them, Shazam them, and then obviously leave a legacy as well. That's entirely up to you. Obviously, there's more cost there if you want to do that. Last little mandatory checkboxes. So you've selected YouTube Music as a store, therefore you won't ask DistroKid why are they uploading to YouTube. You recorded this music, you're authorized to sell it worldwide and collect the royalties. Not using any other artist name, song title, or album title without approval. And of course, you've read the distribution agreement. So once you've done all that, we click done. It then uploads the album artwork, and then it uploads the track. So once it's uploaded everything, it'll say done. That was easy, wasn't it? And it really was. When will this single be released? So give stores up to a week to publish your album live. iTunes, Apple Music often happens faster, but not always. And then for Spotify, new deliveries can take at least 5 days to go live. So then it gives you get to work. And this is what I really, really like. They've already made a pre-save page for people to listen to. Let's have a look at a preview of that. Let's see what that looks like. We can share it now. You can edit it before you post it. So let's have a look and see what it looks like. There we go. So straight away, it's there. Basically, you can go and preview it, and it says available soon. Even if you haven't done a pre-save, you've still got the hyperfollow, which is from DistroKid, and they can actually just sort that out straight away. And as more stores become available, they just keep getting added at the bottom here. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to actually copy that over, and you can always log back in later. If you ever want to find it again, all you do is just basically go to the gear icon, click hyperfollow, and it shows you all your hyperfollow links for anything you've ever released. Now before you go, a couple of things I want to talk to you about. I've done this over 5 episodes. I've been taking it 1 week at a time. If you've got the time, you could actually smash this out in about 2 days. You could even do it in 1 day, but I really wouldn't advise that because your ears are going to get real tired from recording to mixing to mastering. Make sure you take the time. If you're going to be passionate about this song, you want to make sure that it's right. Use the hyperfollow link that DistroKid give you. They are giving you a free tool, and I can't stress, I think that's really powerful. As more stores become available, you can just get your followers to click that link. Then, once you've got a bit of time, go back into DistroKid, have a look at the analytics, and look at where people are listening to your music. If they're all listening on Spotify, then great, give the Spotify link out to people. If they're all listening on Napster, go to Napster and get the link there and give that out to people. So this is a great tool where you can figure out where basically what they're listening to and also how they're listening to your music. Now the viewers who've got real eagle eyes may have noticed that when I released the track, I actually did it today, and today for me actually right now is Tuesday, and this is coming out on Friday, so you and me might actually be out there by now. I'm now talking in the future, but in the present, that's weird. See if it's there. If it's there, fantastic. Give it a listen, tell me what you think. So I'm going to create a card so you can go back and binge watch part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, which is this one, and then you can actually divulge all the information we've given you this month. A massive thank you to DistroKid who are sponsoring this entire series. So we're going to put a link up on the screen now. There it is. And it gives you 7% off your first annual membership with DistroKid. You can release as much music as you want for this year, and it'll cost you one price. A second massive thank you is to you guys. The comments you've been giving me are fantastic. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. And if you've got any more comments about recording, releasing a track, anything to do with that, give me a shout and I will answer them as quickly as I can. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.